Looking to grow your business? Tap into millions of monthly active users with DoorDash ads. Whether you're a local favorite or a national brand, our ad solutions help you reach new customers where they are, browsing and buying on the DoorDash app. To learn more, visit about.doordash.com and click Advertise. DoorDash ads. Reach, relevance, returns.
Hi, I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Special Projects Editor and Senior Reporter at AdAge, and welcome to another edition of the Marketer's Brief Podcast, our weekly discussion about marketing news and trends that have the industry buzzing. Few categories are more competitive than beauty, where the rise of direct-to-consumer players have made it more necessary than ever for brands to be innovative with both marketing and product. Today, we'll be talking with Oshia Savor, the Chief Brand Officer of Maesa, a company that incubates and scales beauty and wellness brands. She'll offer an inside look at some of Maesa's brand success stories and discuss what is happening in the beauty industry overall amid an uncertain economy. Now here's my conversation with Oshia. Hi Oshia, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Adrienne.
So tell me about Maesa Beauty. I wasn't familiar with it until recently.
Yes, absolutely. We are a very unique company in the beauty business. We call ourselves the next gen beauty company. And the reason why we do that is because we are an incubator and an operator of brands. Operator, of course, makes a ton of sense. There's a lot of CPG companies that operate large scale brands. And four of our brands are forecasted to exceed the $100 million threshold this year as well. But what makes us so unique is that we're also an incubator of brands. What that means is we create new brands from scratch and we scale them from 0 to 100 and beyond. And that's the exciting part of it. And whilst in this day and age, with so many barriers to launching new brands has gone, it is very easy to launch a new brand, but it is still so hard to scale it. So in the industry where, say, an average hit rate is 1 out of 10, for us at Maesa, it's 2 out of 3, which means 2 out of every 3 brands that we launch actually become successful and then over time scale to cross the $100 million threshold.
So are you just creating brands or have you ever purchased existing brands as well?
So we haven't purchased any brands so far, but of course, we never say no. But all of our portfolio is brands that we've created from scratch. Our very first brand actually was with Drew Barrymore with Color Cosmetics back in 2014. But actually, when the business model took off for the company was when we launched the Kristen S hair brand at Target in 2017. And since then, we've had multiple launches, several of whom have scaled, as I mentioned, majority of them in the mass retail space and across hair category, skincare, color cosmetics, fragrances, and beyond. And most recently, we just expanded in intimate care too. So multiple categories.
And how many brands is that total then?
So right now, I would say we have active about 6 to 7 brands, of which 4 are scaling, as I mentioned, and 2 or 3 of them are in different phases of development. And one in intimate care was just born 4 weeks ago at Target. So it's just very exciting. It's our new baby out there.
So I wanted to kind of highlight one of the brand stories and kind of talk about some of the recent growth with the incubation strategies and all of that. It sounds like this recent intimate care brand is one that we might want to walk through kind of the launch and some of the marketing success that you've had there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as I mentioned, incubation is at the heart of what we do. And for us, innovation is not just one department, it's truly the mindset of everything that percolates the company. We're constantly reading beauty trends, and more than the beauty trends that everybody's reading, we're very interested in the subcultures and the underbelly of culture, because that's where we start to place our bets in terms of saying when those trends are going to become large enough that deserve a brand of their own. So, about a couple of years ago, when we started to work on niches and nooks, we found that there was an increase in overall conversations on TikTok and in social media around intimate care. And that in, say, for Gen X or millennials, the rate of wanting to be able to talk about it was, say, somewhere in low 30s. We were starting to see that Gen Z was more open about the topic and subject, and yet still at only 43%, right? So there is still so much room to grow, and yet there's been growth from where we're coming. And when you walk down the aisles of intimate care in mass retail, particularly, it looks like the dishwashing aisle. And, so we had this insight internally as we were talking about it, and we're like, our vagina is not a dishwasher, we need to
Great line.
Right. So can you imagine how much fun we had and how many times we spoke of that topic with our CEO? It's actually his quotable quote, our vagina is not a dishwasher. And so that's where sort of this idea came about. And we're like, okay, there's these macro trends of overall generationally, they're being more open as to talk about it. We're seeing that this particular category overall is still lacking real innovation, lacking modern design, appeal, and an ethos that could attract almost like this ageless mindset, if you will. So that's sort of where the idea came about. And then we decided to call it niches and nooks. And as the name would suggest, it's the nooks and crannies of your body, right? So there's a bit of that implied inside joke in there. Like at first you don't get it, and then you see it and you're like, ah, I got it. And then everybody smiles and chuckles. So we thought that putting comedy at the center of this launch could be very, very interesting because it normalizes our ability to talk about it. So our first campaign that we launched with Serena Kerrigan, who's the brand ambassador on this launch, was around, is it normal for your vagina to smell like whatever, and there was a lot of research, of course, we done that a lot of the searches online start with wanting to know, is it normal? Right. So taking the shame out of the category, making it normal to talk about it, putting comedy at the center of it to normalize the conversation was sort of some of the strategies that are at play at this launch. And happy to say it's off to a very solid start at Target. We can't wait to see all the amazing things that are going to happen on this brand.
And so where is the marketing taking place that you're doing that? Where is that? Is it normal campaign running?
So we take a very unique approach at Mesa. So we don't do a lot of the traditional paid marketing. In fact, how we think about our brand is earned, owned, and paid. So while those three pillars have been all well known in marketing, it's marketing one-on-one, but it's the emphasis we place on each one of these. And paid is almost like the last thing, if you will, that comes through. So for us on earned side, so it's Serena's channels, it's our channels, it's Dr. Fran, who's our OBGYN brand ambassador on the brand as well. So those are the three primary drivers of it. And then over time, we release more content on the channels. We inspire influencers to create content. We had an amazing brand event where over 100 influencers came by and we had comedians talking about, is it normal, for various uncomfortable topics, if you will, and we openly talked about all of that. So it is a very untraditional way of going to market where earned and owned are sort of priority for us and paid comes very, very secondary.
I'm getting back to something you said earlier when you were talking about the launch of the brand, just about how Gen Z seems so much more open and kind of less taboo about some of these topics like intimate care. From a generation perspective, why do you think that is, and how are you using that insight to kind of inform the marketing plan for this brand and for your other brands in the portfolio?
Yeah, I think overall, just as you and I know, anything that we're seeing right now was probably 10 years in the making or 20 years in the making, right? So I think when we even think about the genesis of probably boomers were the least comfortable talking about it. Then world opened up around us, media opened up around us, cultures opened up around us. Gen X more normalized about it. Then came millennials and then Gen Z. So I think it's a sort of like a natural progression, if you will, in the culture and influence of media and globalization that's happening. And perhaps certain cultures outside of America have been always more open to talk about it, right? So I think there's a little bit of confluence of cultures and media over time that has happened. And for us, how we attract Gen Z particularly is, of course, in the look of the brand and the name of the brand. It's very iconic, it's very social media friendly at start, but then also being extremely earned focused, very TikTok focused, very Instagram focused in how we go about it, looking for subcultures and so on. And this is something that overall is not unique to just niches and nooks at Mesa. Like even when we launched our brand Finery in 2023, what we did was we found that fragrances overall were having a moment in prestige, whereas mass retail had walked away from fragrances because of very high levels of pilferage. So while during COVID, fragrances took off, mass retailers were not even playing in the category anymore, right? So when we looked at Finery, we saw what was going on TikTok with perfume talk during COVID. We saw the trends everywhere else were booming, but mass didn't have a way of playing in it. So we created a whole new brand, Finery, to democratize the fine fragrance culture that was happening in social media. And of course, because we were able to harness that, it was a viral launch to start. We placed the brand on shelves and it ran out of stock right away because of the virality at start, right? So it isn't just one brand, it is pretty much our business model across all our brands.
Are you seeing mass retail get back into fragrance kind of as a result of some of these trends? And also, have they eliminated the pilfering issue then?
Yeah, so I think, see, pilferage is very common in retail. It's always been there, it will remain there. But what we are seeing is that fragrance is the breakthrough category. And that happened during COVID. Fragrances really took off. And we are seeing that momentum continue on both in prestige and in mass. So you're absolutely seeing brands there. You're seeing continued growth levels. You're seeing a lot of product formats entering. Finery alone has doubled the category and has been double-digit growth since arrival. And our brand Mixbar doing the same in retail, right? So there is definitely more momentum in the category across the board, not just with mass, but also with prestige.
And for each of the brands in your portfolio, is there pretty much a different marketing plan for each one, or are you still adhering to those pillars that you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, so when we are developing our brands, first and foremost, it is imperative that when we are launching it, there is a white space, a real white space in the market, what we call the unmet consumer needs, or rather unmet consumer niches, right? This underbelly of culture where we are placing our bets for that white space that is going to become big in our crystal ball, right? So that is sort of the number one genesis of that. So when you hit that white space and you have the right design, brand ethos, you're able to attract that. So that's number one. But in terms of just building that brand, the marketing flywheel that goes into it, we have a very simple yet powerful model that we look at. And therefore, each brand then becomes very unique. We have a North Star, we have a brand purpose, and we have the superpowers. So, for instance, in the case of Finery, we called gaming, digital, generative AI, these really elevated, immersive fragrance experiences on top of really kick-ass product visual identity in store would become the differentiator. Versus in the case of Being Frenchy, which is another one of our wellness brands that has also really cracked open the wellness category in beauty at Target. It's about innovative product formats, doing things in mass that mass consumers haven't experienced before. It's about creating that intimate wellness community where we come together and we discuss our deep mental health or our wellness issues. And then we talk about mood science technology. So still scent, but very, very functional, which means that scent has impact on your mood and the whole ritualization of wellness through Being Frenchy comes to life. And I could go on and on, but different parts of our brands will therefore then have different superpowers and how those brands come to life in different ways in the world.
And what about work with influencers and creators? You mentioned some ambassador partnerships earlier. Is that true for all of the brands or just select?
Yes, no, that I would say is sort of like our overarching business model, if you will. We are very, very big on culture and talent. So some of our brands are actually founder-led. Being Frenchy brand that I mentioned was founded with Ashley Tisdale, Heritage by Mindy McKnight, who is a very big YouTuber and the number one mom, and started her career educating on hairstyles and how to democratize those. So we have a beautiful hair brand with her at Walmart. And on the other side, we have Finery, which was built without a founder partner, but absolutely built with influencers, 100% the reason why the brand went viral, right? And similarly for intimate wellness, which is Niches and Noaks, we actually have a very formal brand ambassador relationship with Serena Kerrigan and Dr. Fran. So different brands have different sort of models, but underlying theme is that we are big on influencer marketing. We are extremely big on earned media because I personally really believe that when your brands have respect and others are talking about your brand when you're not paying them for it is the most authentic form of word of mouth you can get for your brands. It's priceless and which is why it's earned. It's harder to get it, but when you get it, it is absolutely priceless and precious. And that's where the brand heat is created.
And it sounds like all the marketing is conducted in-house. Is that right? Or do you guys ever partner with outside creative agencies?
Very, very, very limited capacity. We have a design studio internally. What I call is almost the moat of the company because the genesis of Mesa started off as a private label manufacturer 25, 26 years ago. and what we were selling was design. Right. So then in 2017 with Kristen S, we said, well, we're doing such a great job for others. Why don't we bring that amazing design capability to owned brands? Right. So that's what we do. So all of the design work, absolutely 100% is done internally. Even the generative AI work that I mentioned on Finery, almost, I would say 90 to 95% of content created on Finery is being created with generative AI and it's all run internally. Sometimes when it comes to social media agencies or influencer marketing or PR, we do work with outside agencies, but again, we do have very robust internal teams that are driving a lot of that work as well.
Let's take a quick break for this message from our sponsor.
Looking to grow your business? Tap into millions of monthly active users with DoorDash ads. Whether you're a local favorite or a national brand, our ad solutions help you reach new customers where they are, browsing and buying on the DoorDash app. To learn more, visit about.doordash.com and click Advertise. DoorDash ads. Reach, relevance, returns.
Welcome back. So I thought we could talk a little bit about the kinds of trends that you're seeing in the beauty and the wellness industry, specifically with shopper behavior. Of course, a big part of the current environment is tariffs and economic uncertainty. And I'm wondering if that's affecting the brands that you guys have under your umbrella at all.
Yeah, so thankfully for us, Mesa has gone through a massive transformation journey over the last 2 years. And luckily for our very smart COO, we were able to move all of our supply chains outside of China. So our exposure is rather limited. So majority of our brands are actually not very impacted by the fluctuation we're seeing in the market. If anything, we're able to jump into the void that probably all of that is leaving in the retail space, are able to partner with our retailer partners and bring them unique solutions and quick solutions for the upcoming quarter 4 holiday season. So really, really amazing for us there. Having said that, you also asked about overall trends that we are seeing in the retail and beauty environment. I think number one is as the consumer sentiment has its sort of fluctuations right now, right? Like one day we're all happy, one day we're all feeling really sad, but for the most part, it's very hard to know what to feel on a day-to-day basis. And when there is such level of uncertainty and brittleness to an anxiety around everything that we are doing, most normal consumer reaction is to be thrifty on spends. What we do find though in beauty category is that beauty actually is very resilient to such recessionary trends that we see in marketplace, what we lovingly call the lipstick index, which means that during the times of recession, when people cut back on high value purchases, beauty rises to the top as sort of like a little luxury I do for myself, for my little wellness, for my little moment of joy. It's the makeup, it's the skincare routine, it's my fragrance to smell good in the time. Like, can you imagine like during COVID, fragrances of all the categories had a breakthrough, right? So it's and during subprime mortgage, it was the makeup that blew through and during COVID skincare too. So with every recession, I think beauty comes in, there's different parts of beauty that resonate. As it relates to sort of 2 or 3 big picture retail trends within that, what we're finding is this is the most intergenerational time for shopping. World's oldest are shopping for beauty. At the same time, the world's youngest are entering beauty. I'm sure you've heard a lot about the Sephora kids when the Generation Alpha and that 6 to 11-year-olds are entering beauty. I have a 9 and a 12-year-old at home, and I will tell you every weekend my 9-year-old is asking, Mommy, when can I start using skincare? Right? And my 12-year-old is actively participating in the skincare boom and the fragrance boom you're seeing in the marketplace. And at the same time, we're all seeking longevity. 90-year-old, 100-year-old people are living. We're calling 50 is the new 40, 40 is the new 30, right? Everybody's feeling younger, if you will, and living longer. So it's very interesting how to tap into these extremes on beauty end, right? That I find very fascinating. And as Mesa and as we plot our trends and our brands, we're constantly thinking about it in very creative ways. Second is we're finding the world is more polarized than ever. What that means is the equal and opposite forces are available at the same time, and the pace at which the alternative point of view comes to the fore through social media is super fast. Back in the day, you would say there was always a dominant trend, there was an emerging trend, and then there was a receding trend. But I find that now trends come to market pretty fast and they stay there. And sometimes polarized trends could coexist at the same time, which I find very fascinating as a marketer in terms of how to tap into that duality or polarized world that we live in, And lastly, wellness is going nowhere. I think as we become more time constrained, as we find more time spent online rather than being outside, we are looking for ways for joy and for relief, and therefore wellness as a macro trend will continue to happen and will penetrate many different categories beyond beauty.
So what do these trends, which are all true, I'm seeing the younger generation tap in. I have two daughters myself who are obsessed with skincare and beauty, and also the emotional connection that consumers have around beauty, even in times of strife. What do they mean for Mesa and what we can expect to see from you guys for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, are constantly watching the trends, and as you very well know, Adrian, you've been in the business for so long. It's an art and science of when to tap into it. You get the timing wrong, and it's the wrong decision. You get the timing right, and it's absolutely perfect. I will tell you that earlier this year, we expanded some of our brands into wider categories because we saw those macro trends come true. So I'd mentioned our brand being Frenchy earlier. It's a brand built on functional fragrance and in its ability to boost your moods. So as we disrupted this space and launched a cross-category bath and body line, including lotions and showers, and now when you go back to a Target or a Walmart, you will see that these categories always existed in silos. You went to the lotion aisle for the lotions and the bath and body for bath and hair for hair and so on and so forth. But what we did with this brand was we brought all those categories together and turned them into rituals. So we have scent-based rituals, but then we expanded earlier this year into hardcore hair as well because we thought wellness didn't just come through in the bath and body, but also how we treat our hair, and giving love to our hair was a big part of how we go to market. So we expanded into hair. Similarly, for our Finery brand, the amount of success we were seeing in our core platform, we expanded it into the men's categories. I already mentioned intimate wellness category to you. We have many more category expansions up our sleeve, but I cannot share them just yet. Just give me a few more weeks and they're all going to be out, and I would be very excited to talk about them.
Well, on that note of anticipation, we are out of time. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course, thank you for having me. Pleasure was all mine.
That was Oshia Savor, Chief Brand and Marketing Officer of Mesa, and I'm Adrienne Pasquarelli, Special Projects Editor and Senior Reporter at Ad Age. I'd like to thank our producer, Lauren Chiardio, and invite you to subscribe to the Marketer's Brief podcast on your favorite player. We promise to keep it brief, or at least short enough for your morning coffee. Thanks for tuning in.
Marketer's Brief listeners get $40 off an adage.com subscription. Sharpen your marketing edge and visit adage.com/brief for your discount.